head, because it can predict the outcome, which makes us safe. So again, use your feelings as your anchor. If you want to make change, you can do that through positive affirmations. And what I tend to do is polarize the negative thinking and create it into a positive affirmation. Simon isn't doing the things that I need him to do. Okay, so my affirmation for today is going to be Simon is always supporting me. And I'm just going to revert that to myself time and time again, if it feels right, because I'm going to use my feelings as my guidance. And if it does feel right, then I'm going to repeat it to myself. So I'm going to use that polarized point of view of the thoughts in my head, and I'm going to start experimenting with how I might be able to start moving out of it. So we're going to self-reflect. We're going to let go. We're going to start to map our values. We're going to envision a future. We're going to affirm, and we're going to take action when necessary. But above all, we are going to monitor ourselves. We are going to observe, and then we're going to show up in a relationship that is the most authentic version of ourselves, grounded and prepared to take any pressures that come our way, because we're going to be so practiced in our new positive way of being that when pressure does get put on us, we fall back to our highest level of preparation. So that's the webinar for today. Thank you so much. I know we're going to go into questions now. So Becky, I don't know if you want to take over in this moment.
Yeah, well, thank you, Gemma.
My pleasure.
There's a lot to take in, and for those of you that just like would like to take a little bit more time to digest, this is recorded, so you can come back and you can listen to all this content again, because what I loved about what you shared, Gemma, was it was actually really, really comprehensive and really sort of touched on not just relationships in general, but like say our relationship with ourselves. So I'm going to open the field up to questions. Is there anything that you wanted further clarification on, or something you'd like Gemma to explain a bit more, or something that you'd like to run past her and get her insight and her wisdom on? Has anyone got any questions?
Don't be shy. There's always going to be something that goes on in the back of the mind that you want to ask. And I know it's a lot of content. So there's a lot of different bits in here that there might be one thing that touched on you. Is there anything that you got from it? Is there a take home that you felt that was valuable to you? You have to take yourself off mute though if you're going to speak, just so
Come on, Hannah, you've moved forward. You look like you have a question.
I'm always the one who sort of starts, I feel. Yeah, I first I was like, oh, I don't need to write a breakup letter. And then I was like, oh, actually, it's a very good idea, because there's been some like blame that I've carried with myself, and I don't really need to carry that blame with myself. So it's like, okay, yes, brilliant. I'm going to do this. So
yeah, it becomes a really powerful tool. It does. And, you know, at the beginning, I said that there's going to be a lot of this content that we automatically go, no, not for me, don't need it. This bit I don't need, or I've already done this. And actually, when you go back to it, you go, oh, okay, now I see it in a slightly different way. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I'm glad you had that as a take home. That's brilliant.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. What's really the line that has stood out to me through your wonderful 30 minutes is freeing myself of emotional burden.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm older, I guess, than most of the that is the difficult part.
Absolutely.
So if I was to work on anything, it would have to be that for me.
Can you see how the elements of that come into play when you start to actually look at what you're holding on to and why? So we kind of focus so heavily on the emotional burden and so much on actually what it feels like and how we carry it. And sometimes it's a little bit of self-harm, right? We're punishing ourselves for connections or things that we might have perceived that we did. And one of the reasons it becomes so important to do an exploratory version and sit down and really observe it is that's when we start to be able to draw it out and let it go. We might be acutely aware of the thing that we're holding on to, but sometimes we don't understand the why, not in its true form. So to be able to absorb it and go down into a little bit of a deeper level, it becomes an incredibly powerful thing. And then giving yourself permission just to let it go. Some things don't have to be a big journey to the end. They can just be do you know what? I'm going to forgive myself for this. I'm going to let this go in this moment. And I'm just going to choose something different for myself today. I'm glad that was brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. That's really great. Is there any other questions?
Great minds think alike. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Becky. Hi, Gemma. Thank you so much for the presentation. Apologies, I was a bit late joining.
No, right.
I just want to say thank you, and just to reflect on what you said. For me, the take-home message was about forgiving yourself. Well, when you forgive, it's not necessarily for the other person, but it's to set yourself free. And I found that really powerful. And the just sort of written it down here, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, the Hawaiian hope.
I have to be honest, I do get it wrong a couple of times, because my brain learns it one way and it actually is pronounced another. So I would say probably 5 times out of 10 I get it right. But it is incredibly powerful. It is probably one of the most powerful tools that I've had and utilized throughout my journey, and especially in the darker moments where I've had to really do some deep forgiveness work. Not just for my own behavior, but for the behavior of others as well. And the beautiful thing about Ho'oponopono is you sit in a space where you can just release it. You haven't got to digest it. You haven't got to analyze it. You haven't even got to put a name to it. You can just have a feeling and apply it. And you'd be amazed how quickly you let it go. That doesn't mean it's going to not come back every now and again, because the really deep stuff comes back quite a lot. We have to do quite a bit of digging. But by using this, it really is a powerful mechanism to be able to just in the moment go, I'm going to forgive myself in this moment, or I'm going to forgive the person or the emotion or whatever it might be in the time. So thank you for that. I'm really glad you found that valuable.
Any other questions or take homes? Tara.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation, Gemma. Yeah, I think I'll go back to the forgiveness too, because it's really rang a bell with me and I resonated with that, which is an issue I have had quite a bit of struggle for over many years. But it is good it's not necessarily forgiving the other person, it's just letting yourself to be free and free up yourself from all the worry, anxiety, and everything else. So it was really, really resonated with me. Thank you very much for that.
I'm so pleased, because it really is a core part of the whole of us, really. And, you know, there are times where we hold on to things so tightly, and then we don't forgive ourselves for the emotions that comes up for just holding on to it, you know, and there's parts of this then that we impart on other people. And then we have to forgive ourselves for that as well. And, you know, it's really important that we do that for ourselves, because peace is always the goal, right? Happiness and peace, and being in a place where there's accordance between you and the relationships that you have. So it becomes an incredibly powerful thing. So thank you so much, Tara. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Excellent.
I think for me, like a couple of things that really stood out is like still being you in a relationship. Like I feel like there's not really a lot of education out there that teaches us how to be in relationships. So we kind of look to our peers and our elders, you know, and we may have grown up in an unhealthy relationship where one person's very dominant, or one person's very passive, and our role models. I feel like a lot of people turn to celebrities for guidance on how to behave as a human being. So I feel like there's not always a great start for people about what a healthy relationship looks like. So often some people can either just be really dominant in a relationship and they don't even know that they're doing it, or other people might just be carrying on their patterns that they had in their family where they were the quiet one, and then they go into the relationship and it just feels comfortable and normal to continue to be the quiet one. I love the bit you put about, you know, conflict resolution, like the passive response, the aggressive response, but actually what the middle of the road is. And I feel like that's what we need more education about. What is a healthy response? I remember when we did our pre-event chat, and I asked you, you know, do you still have arguments with your partner? And you said, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's important. It's so important, because if you don't and you almost pretend to be perfect, right? And it's not just a female thing. It's an all over thing. When we're in a sense of self, living outside of ourselves a lot of the time, and some of you may know what I mean by that, and some of you may not, but frequently we live outside of ourselves. And when we're in a conflict, we can sometimes throw that at other people, throw parts of ourselves at other people. So when you're in yourself, when you're actually living consciously and you're having an argument, it becomes incredibly cathartic and a very, very healthy tool in order to be able to then create that resolution and move forward. And not only that, but it builds trust. Because if you can be your worst, perceptually worst, and that person can hold a space for you, it becomes an incredibly trusted space to be in. But you can only achieve that when you really start to break down these parts of yourselves, know yourselves almost on a granular level. So what you will accept, what you won't accept. And that's a lifelong journey in itself.
And would you agree? I tend to find that how you treat yourself, other people treat you the same way that you treat yourself. So if you always put yourself last, other people will habitually put yourself last also.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah, we teach other people how to treat us, right? So if we're treating ourselves in a certain way, we're just showing other people how we want to be treated. So if you're hard on yourself, if you don't love yourself, and you're being really self-deprecating, even if you're joking, you know, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I did that. Okay, so you're kind of showing people where your levels are. So there's a point, and this, again, it doesn't have to be rigid in its nature. There are times, obviously, funny is funny, and it doesn't have to be rigid, but we teach other people how to treat us, and it's incredibly important that we know us well enough to know how we want to be treated. What's really important as well to remember in this is when you start doing this level of work, you may change. And that means your relationship may change as well. Your partner might not be ready for your growth. That doesn't mean that your growth should be stinted. That just means that you have to create a win-win situation throughout the growth. Now, if the end of that process means that it's an intolerable relationship, then maybe different discussions need to be had. But absolutely, you have to allow for that for yourself. It's a gift you will give yourself.
What advice would you give to someone that's going or would like to get into a new relationship? The
good stuff.
Based on what you've shared this evening and what you know, like, how would you coach someone moving into a new relationship, and how they would sort of tackle all of that, and like newness and uncertainty, but still stay within the principles you shared?
Yeah, I think it becomes easier as you get to know yourself, because you no longer attract the people that potentially are going to do you harm at the beginning. Like, let's say, for instance, we had a gap within ourselves or a gap within our knowledge that was really becoming a magnet for people that wanted to do us some harm. And I don't mean just necessarily physically harm, but a lot of emotional harm, you know. people tend to like to unload their suitcase in a relationship, especially on people that are ready to receive it, because they don't understand themselves well enough. When you start to do the work, it actually becomes quite easy, because you start to then attract people that align with your values, and everybody else goes on the waistline. It just disappears. So I would say that a level of confidence can be had here when you start to go into new relationships. And as long as you're doing that exploratory work consistently, how does this make me feel? How do I want to be in this relationship? How do I want to show up? And a part of where that goes as well is something called a full body yes. When you have a full body yes with a partner and you meet somebody, and it's not just sexual attraction, and it's not just mental alignment, or maybe it's future goals, you just both decide that you want to have kids and he seems like an attractive fellow to have them with, there has to be a full body yes. And when you know yourself well enough and you go, oh, that's a full body yes, I'm in this is good for me, it becomes easier. So I think that there has to be an element of training, self-learning, development, spending time with yourself, getting to know yourself, and enjoying it as well. That becomes a really important part, is go with the flow until you hit a roadblock.
Because your point about like how much of your life is determined by moving away from pain as opposed to moving away from pleasure. I think sometimes when we've had really difficult experiences, like we tend to just accept a shrinking of our world. Because we're just like, we don't want to go there, we don't want to be cheated on again, or we don't want to just, you know, feel like we're not matched with someone again, or we don't want to like give our heart and soul to someone for it to not work out. And I think there's an element of we need to challenge ourselves, because if we're not growing, we're shrinking.
Absolutely. And we do that to ourselves, right? So the person that cheated on us actually ends up shrinking, giving us this thing where we then start to make ourselves incredibly small. And that's where you have to then go back to your belief system. Have I adapted a belief system that is telling me that every relationship is going to end in disaster? Is every man or every woman going to cheat on me? And then you have to look at the concordance with that. Is that true? Is that what's actually happening? Or when I went into this relationship, I didn't come with my full self. I just came with part of myself. And maybe next time I need to actually come with the my full self to show up for this relationship. And maybe that means that he isn't the right person for me. Maybe I look at it and I go, oh, actually, this isn't a full body yes, and it never was at the beginning. So I can say no, because if it's not a full body yes, absolutely, it should be a no. And so you then start to look at these things, and it's not then thrust upon you. Sometimes it's then in a situation where you can make choices, what's acceptable and what isn't for you. Now, there are things that happen in relationships that absolutely are 100% out of your control. 1,000,000%. There is nothing you can do about it. It was going to happen, and it has happened. And there are ways in which you can create coping strategies around that, which will give you a much more healthier view moving forward. I think Becky has actually left the chat. I think she left halfway through that one. So does anybody else have anything that they wanted to ask me at this point? Any more questions or any input or anything that they wanted to go through? Okie dokie. Brilliant.
Am I back for you, Gemma?
You are. Here you are. I was just saying that you've, I think you've, Zoom's chucked you out again.
Yeah, twice tonight. That's not very good, is it? All right. Well, look, you do have a little offer to share with people, if anything that's resonated with anyone tonight and feels like actually this is something that they would benefit from looking at in greater depth. Do you want to talk them through?
Yeah, so for me, I am a coach. I'm a life coach, and as I say, I specialize in this area. So I do have a website, which is and it's loveyourlifelifecoaching.co.uk. So please visit it, have a little look, and I do coaching sessions, and there's lots of different versions of that as well. I've also got a course that's up and running at the moment, which is a 7-day micro course. So there's lots of stuff there to have a look through. It is pretty new. So there is going to be bits that's going to be added on as time goes on. So do subscribe. There's a little sales plug there. But fundamentally, thank you so much. And I really, really, really appreciate your time this evening. I do value time. I find it very important. So the fact that you've given a part of your Friday evening up for me is amazing. So thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Gemma. I feel like you've done such a great job of talking about a really huge topic. And I know, having watched your journey for many years now, you are absolutely authentic on this, and a real good go-to person for someone that wants to dive deeper. So do check out her website and stuff, and I will get the recording out to people by Monday. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely weekend or week, whenever you're watching this, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye bye.